with your bro DM James, and I am here because I fell asleep today in the afternoon and ended up sleeping too much, and now I'm awake, starting to get a little tired, but you know how it is. And as usual, I thought since I'm sitting in here painting, may as well interact with whomever shows up. Um, yeah, I don't know who that'll be. I think Bear had his game tonight. A lot of people had games tonight, which makes me jealous, but hey. But I mean, that's a passion I have to overcome, I think. Because if I had it my way, I would be running the D&D game like 2 or 3 times a week. But of course, as adults, my players and wife, they wouldn't be able to keep up with that. So, but I have so much fun hanging out with them that yeah, that's just the way that is. I'm not going to contact my brother because if there's one thing I know about my brother, you just woke up as well. How you doing, Satya? Baume's expedition went very well for your players. That is excellent to hear. And Daniel Berry, what is up? Happy Friday or Saturday or whatever day we're on. It's always good to see you, bro. Yeah, Barrel Maze is really an amazing setting, dungeon, whatever, because it's kind of all of the above. Um, and can also be incredibly deadly if the players aren't, paying attention. Very creative, though. I mean, Mr. Gillespie did a great job on it. I use it with OSE, even though I do own Greg Gillespie's Dragon Slayer game. The main reason I still use OSE, and I tell everybody this, is basically layout. That's really the only, and I don't mean this as a knock on the guys at Necrotic Gnome. I really don't. But their game is not special. It's Moldvay Cook D&D. And I even still have the box sets for Moldvay Cook edited D&D. So, I mean, I could easily run that, or I could run AD&D if I wanted a more complicated game. But where Necrotic Gnome really blows everyone else away is the layout of their book. And what I don't understand, like if I were a game designer, that would be the first thing after figuring out what game and how it was going to play. The first thing I would be looking at is how to make it as well edited and put together as OSE. I mean, I did put a game out years ago. It's free on like Big Geek Emporium and stuff like that. But since it was just me, the editing sucks. I'm sure I misspelled words and stuff like that. So, of course, when I wrote that game, most of these Heartbreakers didn't exist. And also, to brag a little bit, my game is not based on D&D at all. As a matter of fact, it is kind of based on Rollmaster, except instead of using percentile die, I converted everything to 5%. You know what I mean? So you could just use a die 20. And it only uses one die 20. So, yeah. You could totally do that. As a matter of fact, I don't know why Rollmaster never put out just a Rollmaster die 20 version of their game and just convert everything to 5%. It might actually simplify some things and they might not be happy with that part. But man, I think it would probably sell better than their actual Rollmaster game does. I could be wrong though. Iron Crown Enterprises, if you see this video, hit me up. Let me know. Or RuneQuest, same thing. You know, if you take RuneQuest and you just convert everything by 5%, Warhammer, same thing. And the first edition Warhammer, you could only raise skills by 5%. So, what, I think they just wanted to use those percentile die to be different, as a way of setting themselves apart. Which I understand, I understand. But Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay could absolutely have just been a die 20 game where every time you raised a skill or an attribute, instead of raising it by 5%, you raised it by 1. And it would work just as well. I'm sure some people would argue that it would simplify it too much, but hey, I don't think it would. I think it'd be basically the same game. On my table tonight, what I'm painting. What's good, bruh? I am painting. This is a brute necromorph. I haven't done the bone spurs yet and the bony teeth things. When he's done, I'll probably take a stiff brush and dip it into hey, what's up, Queen? Dip it into crimson blood and then flick it at him so that it'll be all there'll be blood specks and it'll look really, Now, why am I making these necromorphs? Because at some point in the future, I will be. Am I in a call? No, I'm just talking to the live stream. I mean, yeah, I woke up last night at 4 a.m. and didn't go to bed, back to bed, and then stayed up most of the day, but then took a nap, which I shouldn't have done. I should have just, I don't know, found a way to stay awake. And that meant when I woke up at 7 p.m., I was all absolutely not tired. So I started working around the house, doing some stuff. I put something in I took a big Cambro thing and just shoved a bunch of 40K stuff in it. And I put it up on my marketplace for $500. Which some of you might be like, wow, 500, really? Dude, there's way more than $500 worth of shit in there. But it's used, it's painted. Some of it might need to have a gun glued back on. I mean, it's complete, but it's all there. So we'll see who bites. And then I'm selling my Mars, my Elegoo Mars Pros. Because, I mean, a guy doesn't need literally 5 3D printers. You don't need that. And they've taken up enough of my garage. So I'm just I've got my Saturn 4 Pro. And, all the other stuff can go. And yeah, I've got a couple guys that are hitting me up on that. And they're like, well, what's the condition? And I'm like, they're well used. I've had these Marses since they came out. So, they're well used. They're beat up, but they work great. Except for the Saturn 3 Ultra. I think it's going to need a LCD light repair. So I had some Warhammer at one point. They were Space Marines. Yeah. I mean, I actually got into Warhammer through the game Space Marine, which was the one where they were tiny little mushroom-looking bastards on a base, 6 mil or something, I think. which the new Space Marine is like 12 mil. And I think that's a little bit better. 12 and 15 is a little bit better if you're going to do that kind of game. But now some of these I did brownish, but this guy, I took my Gilliman flesh. Let's see if I can get it to actually do with it. I took my Gilliman flesh and I put a little bit of Caribird Crimson in to give it more of a red. Yes. Yes. The only time I buy figures really is if there's one, it would be cheaper to buy them because sometimes it is, or two, believe it or not, and two is if it's a specific figure that's already made by somebody that, like over here, I haven't even put them together yet, which is just me being lazy. I need to. But I've got the Heroes of Hadley's Hope, right? And that's the guys from the second Aliens movie, right? Now, I could print up knockoffs of these. I've seen them on like Paps makes them, there's a couple, but this box with all of the dudes in it was $20. So it's like, do I take the time and use the resin? And the resin I use is like $40 a liter, right? Do I take the time and use this expensive, super tough resin that's also water rinsable and supposedly a lot healthier, which is still means it's poison and would kill you, but not as bad as some of the other stuff? And or do I just pay $20 and get the whatever? And the only reason I really bought them is because my wife bought me this. And of course, if you look close, you can see the xenomorphs. My wife bought me this Aliens board game that is it's a co-op game where all the players get to pick characters, and then it plays kind of like Space Hulk. As you're exploring the place, you put tiles down, and stuff like that. So she and I and our friends will at some point get together and play it. I don't know. I will tell you this. Games Workshop come out with a rule that you couldn't use any 3D printed parts in any army you were going to use in a tournament, and has since lifted it. War Games Atlantic, that puts out some amazing miniatures, and occasionally I pick up a box or two of them. They actively sell STL files of a lot of the stuff they make. So, War Games Atlantic might have a line called "What if the Confederates of World War II" or something, like assuming the South won and now it's World War II and the South and the Union are fighting again, but World War II. And you can buy a box set of the plastic miniatures, or you can pay them like however much money and download the STL and print them yourself. Another game company that's doing that is Pinnacle. For those of you who don't remember, Pinnacle was the one, I believe, that put out War Machine. And now I don't even know if they sell actual physical products, but they do sell STLs so that you can just print up whatever army you want. You know what I mean? So at some point, Games Workshop is going to have to realize that that's just the future. And they're going to have to jump on board. I think people who have good printers, if Games Workshop was like, hey, I'll sell you the STL for this Space Marine kit for like $50, I guarantee you there are 3D printers out there who would be like, hell yeah. And they would give Games Workshop $50 for the STLs to make whatever kind of Space Marines it is, or, or whatever. I mean, like I said, that's what so many other game companies are already doing. Well, what would happen is if you bought the thing, you would download the STLs, and there's really nothing they could do to stop you from putting those STLs on a thumb drive and giving them to a friend. But the counter argument to that is I have a Horus Heresy Blood Angel army, which I will show you miniatures from. I've showed it off before. Let's grab it. Like, here's a good one. It's a Mark III Space Marine. I think that's Mark III or Mark II, right? Or what? Look, let me grab another one. Let's see. How about this guy? Yeah, this guy's even better. It's a Space Marine Sniper. There's a special name for them, and they're only really available in Horus Heresy, right? This whole figure is made by a company in Ukraine. Like this guy right here. I don't think a single part of this miniature was actually made by Games Workshop except the ammo pack and the pistol holster. Yeah, I glued those on. But the backpack, the actual Marine itself, the shield I 3D printed. So the arm I 3D printed. The head I 3D printed because I wanted the specific Blood Angels head helmet type, which, you know, they don't make. So I 3D printed it. But the body come from Ukraine. There's a company in Ukraine that sells true scale Space Marines. So if you want to, now Warhammer or Games Workshop has realized they effed up and they're trying to fix that. But the Mark III Space Marines that Games Workshop put out are stumpy, they're short. Like some of my freaking Death Corps of Krieg guys are as big as the Space Marines, right? So it's like they're just horrible looking if you pay attention to this sort of thing, or you, for half the price, order from some lady. It was a lady in Ukraine, and she sends you a plastic kit that has all of the Marine bodies you could ever want at the right scale, so that when you put them next to a Primaris Marine or something like that, they're the same height. And that was a big deal for me. A lot of people will be like, I don't care. And you know what? Okay, that's perfectly fair, perfectly fair. If you don't care that your old Marines that you collected back in the 90s look like stupid little mushrooms and that the Imperial Guard are hulking over them and shit, I mean, you do you, bro. I mean, always, 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 you do you. But I care. You know what I mean? That is also before someone asked me the question, my opinion on female Space Marines. If you want to go online somewhere or 3D print a bunch of muscle mommy heads to put on your Space Marines and knock yourself out, I have the choice of ignoring it or just not playing against you. But I don't got to be a dick about it. You know what I mean? I can just be like, huh. And now, is it cool? No, it's not cool. There are no female Space Marines. Everybody knows that. But I refuse to allow myself to get bent out of shape about shit that ultimately is what someone else does with their miniatures. It's their miniatures. Now, this I need to put a wash on to darken it up. And when the wash is completely dry, then I'm going to lightly go over it with a dry brush and like fire red. Very light, just so that all the writing on it kind of pokes out. Some of you might recognize that, which means then you know what these are all about. Now their claws and their teeth are getting ready to get some pallid bone to darken it up. And then, like I said, I'll splash blood on them too. This guy's wearing a pair of pants. I have to figure out, like the other guy had a uniform on and I did him in like a turquoise uniform. But I might do the other one in like a military green, maybe gray. These are all guys that used to be, people on a ship or a world or something. So, like this behind me, let's see if I can get it in the. This is a 28 millimeter scale starship that's actually 11 levels. It completely comes apart and the interior is playable. And because I don't believe in artificial gravity, and that's just the way this ship was made, and Traveler 2300 doesn't have artificial gravity. Yeah, the decks are like this. So in order to go from the bridge here all the way down, you would have to go down lifts, go down lifts, go down lifts. And how it generates gravity is by accelerating at 1G. So, but I wouldn't worry about. I mean, if you have whole companies in Ukraine, cranking out everything you can think of at higher quality, because I'm telling you right now, I'm not trying to advertise, but the Marines I bought from the Ukrainian company are way better than anything that freaking Games Workshop is making. They're just better. And they're made out of like a resin, not like 3D printed, but like a mold they pour the resin in. So kind of like how Forge World used to do. And if like a local place were to tell me, hey, you're not allowed to play with that army in any tournaments because it has, secondary market stuff in it and 3D printed stuff, I would 100% respect their choice. That would be my response. I'd be like, yeah, okay, that's cool. I mean, I've got a whole Imperial Guard army that's 100% legit. So I'd just be like, okay, I guess I'm not playing Blood Angels. I guess I'm playing Death Corps of Krieg, prepared to be, artillery to death with all of my freaking basilisks. But yeah. I've got some of my Kriegsmen. I painted my Kriegsmen. Every platoon is slightly a different. Like I've got an engineer platoon and they're wearing the Horizon blue, but I've got sapper platoon and they're wearing like a OD green color, jacket. And then of course the man, the legend, the myth, one of my favorite miniatures that I've ever painted up. Hey, if you know, you know. If you don't know, I'll help you and I'll tell you to go online and watch Goblin Slayer. And if the actual Goblin Slayer is a little bit too dark for you, then go on YouTube and watch Goblin Slayer Bridged, because it's literally one of the most hilarious things ever. It is hilarious. Goblin Slayer Bridged. That's a 3D print, though. I 3D printed that. Yeah. And then this guy right here, I'll show off to the few of you looking. This is a fire giant, right? You see how he's got his flaming red beard and his obsidian skin, and he's got, big shield on his back. But it's also a 3D miniature of my real life brother, Hungar, just done up like a barbarian. And I have it in 3 scales. I have it in giant scale, human scale, and dwarf scale, because my brother plays dwarves a lot. So I had to take the miniature of my brother and make a dwarf out of it. So here's our girl Slan. Some of you might remember her, Slan, part of the God Hand. I wonder, Slan, okay, did Berserk come before Warhammer or the other way around? Because Slanesh in Warhammer is the god of sexual depravity and all that shit. And Slan is the finger of the demon, the God Hand, that's in charge of sexual depravity and all that shit. So I wonder if somebody was inspired by somebody somewhere. I would say that's the case, but we're here. This now, if somebody ever decides to take over the D&D game and they're like, hey, I'm going to run the D&D game, you can play. I'm going to be like, I want to play this guy. Let's see if I can get him to focus right. If I can not shake. That's right. You know who that is. If you know who it is, tell me. Yeah, you didn't know that dropping by my chat, there was going to be a test involved, but there is. So if you know who that is, let me know. Tell me who it is. Here's my Deathcore of Krieg. This is my sapper paint job. So they got the Horizon blue pants, but they got a green jacket. Whereas the line infantry have green pants, but they have the Horizon blue jacket. You see what I mean? That way, when they're on the table, they're not super like everything just looking alike. And that's kind of important when you're putting like 120 miniatures on the table, which I don't know how people feel about, but that's how it is when you play the Deathcore of Krieg. Because a lot of times you don't take chimeras to carry them into battle. You might have a few Lehman Russ tanks, but ultimately the army is just, hey, let's do infantry, and then more infantry, and then more infantry. You know, it's like more. Now, this is something some of you are going to be like, huh? Why? That's a T90. And I forget the actual, like a T90 type, whatever. I have a bunch of Russian and American Cold War up tanks and stuff like that. Because, you know, me and my friends for a while were playing like Twilight 2000, and we were playing it. We originally started playing it at 15 mil scale, but then we upped it to 25 mil scale. So that's a 3D printed T90, which speaking of buying stuff from Ukraine and stuff, why haven't we seen these in Ukraine? We know the Russians have a shit ton of them, but it seems like all they ever send into Ukraine is like old equipment, T-72s and BMP-1s. It's like, where are the BMP-3s and the BTR-3s and, you know, the M90, like the high-end M90 or T90s? I don't know. And then this, which I trained in for a little while, that's a American 113 IFV. Yep, I trained in one of these for a little while, and then when I was in the Army, they went from using these to the Bradley, and we went to the Bradley. And I have some Bradleys, you know, which I love my Brads, you know. Anyway, guys, keep talking. It's late. If you don't keep talking, you'll just be watching me sleep. And then I've got my Humvee. This is, of course, the hard shell Humvee. And the reason this isn't painted is the Humvee itself is 3D printed. But I recently found some good STLs for like bumpers and stuff to you know. And it's got the opening here because it's got multiple weapons that just slot into it. Like somewhere on the table, there's a 50 cal that slots into that thing. But I've also got like a TOW-2 and a Mark 19 grenade launcher that can slot in there too. Again, Twilight 2000. But yeah, that question, I keep seeing it because no one else is typing anything, though. The how do they stop? They don't. They never will. They can't. So the option is, oh yeah, work. Yeah. Take care of your business, such it's not a big deal. You're not the only one in chat. I was just saying, hey man, keep me interested. Otherwise, I'll just start drifting into God only knows what. But the reality queen, Jade Blue, it's actually a really cool name, Jade Blue, is they can't stop it. right? Like Games Workshop can go online and they can try to stop it, but they will never stop it. Not only can you just go to places and find Space Marines that you can 3D print, or parts of Space Marines you can 3D print, but hidden on the internet, there are little groups of guys. I'm not a part of them, but I know I read about this, where all they do is make STLs of Warhammer shit and trade it back and forth. There's no way to stop it, especially in countries in Eastern Europe that don't recognize copyright law anyway. Thus, the Ukrainians being able to straight up just sell me whatever Space Marines I want. Because if Games Workshop sends this Ukrainian company a stop and desist or whatever, the Ukrainians are going to laugh at them and be like, yeah, go get bent. Freaking beans on toast. We don't care, you know? And here's what's crazy. I ordered those Space Marines 2 years after the Russians invaded, and they got here quicker than shit I've ordered from people in America. So, I don't know. You got to make sure you wash them, though, because whatever mold release they use on their molds is very good. Very good. So, yeah, you got to wash them. Oh, yeah. Have fun, man. Have fun, work. I'll talk. My, you know what? I never knew when I was young. This is the beauty of technology. When I was young, it never occurred to me that one day I would be able to have a chat with a guy in Finland. Because before the internet and everything, like those things like Finland, Estonia, you know, like these distant places, they might as well have been like Avalon or freaking Elfland, or, I mean, you know, a hillbilly from Eastern Kentucky was never going to go there. And, you know, in the time when phones were nailed to walls, it was like, and now, thanks to the beauty of technology, I can be like, oh, it's a dude from Finland. What's up, bro? Oh, it's a guy from England. What's up, bro? You know? And I think every now and then, all of us internet people, whether you're making stuff on the internet or just watching it, every now and then we should all stop and consider like where we actually are right now. As far as, oh my God, man. You know, my game group, which I still play with, it was mostly the guys that I met in the town I lived in at the time, back in high school, and my brother and my sister until she passed. But, you know, but now if I wanted to game online, I could be gaming with people literally all over the entire planet. So yeah, I think every now and then we should like just stop and consider that. Like, wow, how lucky are we, you know, that we can do this? And also, how lucky are we that we can carry a phone around that literally has, or a computer, all of the knowledge of our entire history, as far as we know, available. That's like some sci-fi shit if you think about it, guys. And I'm not making any, I didn't make any moral like things to it. Like, I didn't want to say whether it was good or bad. That's up to you to decide. But it really is kind of crazy to think about, I think. Like, just, you know. Sorry, I didn't get that. The internet isn't reachable. Yeah, I know. My Alexa, which I usually use to listen to music and stuff, is we got a new modem because we got, they, in my area, they upgraded. This is just a sci-fi ATV. And I cut the wheels off of it because these were the wheels that were on it. And I put different wheels on it and a different bumper. because I wanted it to look cooler. Those wheels, if you're wondering, they come off of a Russian BTR 60. And when I printed up my Russian BTR, since the wheels were separate, I printed like 20 freaking wheels. And yeah, so anytime I need wheels for something sci-fi or something, I stick those knobby BTR wheels on. Because, I mean, they just look good. All my friends are heathens, take it slow. Wait for them to ask you who you know. See, if you don't ask me questions, I'll just start singing. You don't know the scent of my view. That was a horrible movie, but I like the song. Actually, I say that I pretty much am a huge fan of just about every single song I've ever heard from 21 Pilots. So, and I know people might be like, "Damn, you're like 50. You go to sleep, Hungar, unless you want to join me." Yeah, I'm 55 years old. I am a huge 21 Pilots fan. And my favorite 21 Pilots song is probably Car Stereo. But Hungar, if you want in, let me know, man. I'll drop the link again. You can pop in and BS around with me. Tell me about your possum, whatever. I didn't call you because I figured you were already asleep. Otherwise, see, you're going to sleep. Yeah, that's why I didn't call you and be like, "Hey, get on." I'm on because I figured you're already asleep. But go to sleep. I'll see you tomorrow, my brother. If you call a white guy brother, he'll give you everything you want. If you call a white guy brother, he'll give you everything you want. That is a skit from China, Illinois, where they talk about the bro code. And apparently, the bro code is if you call a white guy brother, then they are indebted to give you whatever you need. But the problem with the bro code is that you have to pay them back. So, and it ends up really bad for the professor who takes advantage of it and then eventually gets called on by somebody to help kill that person's spouse. And he's like, "What?" And the guy's like, "Sorry, you got to help. It's the bro code, you know." Steve. Of course, if you like China, Illinois, my favorite is definitely baby cakes. I love baby cakes. I've been looking for a decent baby cakes miniature STL to print out. And I will print that bastard out, especially if I can find the Baby Cakes Barbarian miniature. And I would print that out and I would use that as my character in a D&D game. Human Barbarian. Also slightly stupid and possibly very autistic. But also a badass. Baby cakes. Baby cakes. Baby cakes. I am a killer. Killzilla. Thriller. You wondering if I want? I freaking willa. With the on. And that's the way your life will get done. Baby cakes. Yeah, baby cakes likes to rap a lot. Baby cakes, baby. And he's also convinced all the professors at China Illinois University are actually wizards. But like I said, baby cakes is literally just insane. Just got up to use the bathroom. Well, okay. Easily approach the microphone because I'm out no joke. Tell your mama to get off of my tip, for I have no time to give her my, because I'm going to hold it and walk around the stage. And if you have up, I'm going to get the gauge and unload the barrels and laugh, because I'm putting lead in your ass. Psychopathic. But the hoes are attracted, because when I'm hard, my dick's at least a yard in the day. See, yeah, I used to listen to a lot of MWA back in the day. It's not really spiritually healthy music to listen to. You'd be much better off, I think, listening to like Byzantine chants and stuff. But the problem is, when I was like 16, I listened to that song so much that now it's just in my head. And it's definitely not a song to sing like in mixed company or anything. You can, yeah, because I'll still be talking shit. The one guy, I knew this kid. I knew that kid when he was knee high to a grasshopper. And the other guy's like, he still is knee high to a grasshopper. Cracking jokes about Easy being really short, which he was. So, all right. I think it's too late. And since I never normally stream at this hour, people are just like, now what? I'm in miniature painting news, I am putting the pallid bone on the spurs of these necromorphs. And if you're wondering, I wonder what paint DM James uses, because that dude's always painting. Right now, I am trying to use as much as humanly possible Vallejo Express, because I bought it and I want to see how it compares to contrast. Now, occasionally there are some things with the contrast paint I still use, like Bad Moon Yellow or Gilliman Flesh, but I've got my box of Vallejo Express paints here, and so you can say I'm doing some experimenting with this paint, because according to Vallejo, this is their version basically of contrast paint or Army speed paint. And I will say I had a pretty good time using Army speed paints. There are some things they're not great for, but by and large, they're really good. So, and the thing is when contrast paints come out, I picked up a set and I hated them. And to this day, I still kind of hate them, except for a very few specific colors. But I think it has nothing to do with the paint and just everything to do with, I remember how much they sucked, and now I'm kind of leery with them. Plus, they're very expensive. They're like $10 a piece, and the Vallejo is a lot cheaper. But, yeah, I don't think using Army painter paints, you're probably going to win too many paint competitions. But what you will do is get your armies painted in a relatively speedy time period, compared to if you do it the old way, where you got to do all the blocked in colors and then, shading and highlighting and blah, blah, blah. I mean, obviously, if you take your time on every miniature, you spend a shit ton of time just, really focusing in on your miniatures, they're going to be beautiful, probably. But when you've got 100 orcs to paint, sometimes it's better to just primer them bitches white and just start dropping, your express paints on them or contrasts or whatever. And typically, the more detail on the miniature, the better the contrast paints or army paint or whatever work. So I can tell you definitively, they're kind of not the best choice for painting Space Marines, most Space Marines, because the Space Marine armor has way too many big flat surfaces. And if you're not watching, you'll get pulling and all kinds of stuff, and it will just look like shit. But grab an orc and paint that thing up with like contrast paints, it'll look great, because the orc is so full of different textures and stuff that yeah, the army or the contrast army paint or whatever can really get in there and like do its thing. So yeah. So it's basically there's a tool for every job, right? There's a tool for every job, and I'm that tool. But I'm a little bit surprised I didn't get banned from Twitch. I wonder if that guy that come over from Twitch, if he ever did try to share the video around to see if he could get me banned, like he said he is going to. Not that I really care, because getting banned from Twitch at this point is like, who cares? You know what I mean? It's not really a threat, But what time is it? Friday night, 2:29 in the AM. Me and a few guys watching. And everybody being pretty relaxed. That's good. I hope you guys got some fun plans for the weekend. Gaming or going out. Whatever your thing is. I mean, no one really asks, but tomorrow I will clean the house and do all the chores that I do, which I do every week. So I'll mop and I'll vacuum and mop and stuff like that. And then Sunday we'll maybe go to mass or whatever, and then Sunday night I'll run Old School Essentials for the game group. There are currently 10 players in the party. And that will be my weekend. That'll be my weekend. Plus whatever else happens up. I mean, like the other day when I was live streaming and my wife was like, there's an emergency, get off the live stream and come with me. And I was like, okay. And I jumped up and took off. A tree had fallen on some of our friends' driveway, kind of blocking their cars in and stuff. So I ran out into my garage, grabbed my chainsaw. We whipped over and I used my chainsaw and just, cut the tree up. It wasn't a huge tree. It was maybe 8 to 12 inches through. So, and yeah, my wife was like, I figured you'd know something about this since, you used a chainsaw in the fire department a lot. And I was like, yeah. Of course, the chainsaw we used in the fire department had like, a 3-foot blade on it. and the one I was using is not anywhere near that. But yeah. But then again, if you live in Eastern Kentucky for any amount of time, you learn to use a chainsaw. I mean, you know, wood ain't going to cut itself. And unless you like freezing your ass off in the winter, or you're the kind of person that's got enough money to hire somebody like me to get you a couple cords of wood, yeah, you definitely going to want to know how to do it. One of my fondest memories is actually hanging out with my grandpa and going out in his old truck and cutting trees down. That's good stuff, you know, good, wholesome stuff. Just a grandkid and his granddad out in the freaking Kentucky woods, cutting some hickory down, some oak, whatever. Then taking it home and letting it cure for a little bit, and then splitting it up and then selling it. One truck bed is basically half a cord. Two truck beds is a cord of wood, basically. Yeah, I used the other day, and for the life of me, I've never been a huge fan of electric tools. But my father in law, who is an absolutely amazing guy, he bought me a Ryoku electric chainsaw. And I was really like, yeah, this ain't going to work. I mean, I'm used to my McCullough, something like that. Uh, that damn thing works great. And all I do is I bought the extra big batteries, like the double thick ones. So if I have a lot of wood to cut, as long as I bring a couple of batteries with me, that thing works great. No problems at all, you know. And so for like you're saying, walking up and down trails, getting rid of, unless these logs are massive, you might be able to get away with, a smaller electric chainsaw. If they're massive, then you're going to want, what's that Swedish company? They make amazing chainsaws. Verge or whatever it's called. Their chainsaws are really good, you know. So yeah, expensive though, but lifetime warranty. So yeah. But then again, I may be biased with the Swedish thing because my favorite kind of knife to take with me when I go hiking and stuff, which I have one around here. So here it is a Mora knife. This is my going hiking knife right here. It is a Mora knife, and I forget the model, but it's got the fire starter on the side. It's got a diamond plate if you need to sharpen it. It's full tang, and look how thick that blade is on the spine. That thing's like an eighth of an inch, which I guess would be like 2 or 3 millimeters. So this is a strong knife that's never going to die, right? And when it's in its case, it floats. So yeah, more knives are amazing. The other knife I have, which is a lot more for hard work, is I have a BK9, which is a K bar, and nine is it's got a 9 inch blade. And that thing, I've actually cut saplings about that big down with that BK9. Cut them right down, just whack, whack, whack. I mean, that was a long time ago when before I had a bunch of metal in my neck and everything. But yeah, I am the titanium firefighter. Well, former firefighter. But yeah. And of course, I've also always dreamed, but never pulled the trigger on because I'm cheap, of getting myself a, damn it, watch me forget, uh, an axe. The Swedish axe company, what's it called? You know, again, lifetime warranty. Supposedly, every single axe is hand forged by, you know, a smith who actually puts his initials into the axe. Um, but those things cost hundreds of dollars. And the fact that I don't go camping a lot anymore makes it kind of difficult for me to justify spending, you know, hundreds of dollars for freaking uh, fancy axe. So, woe is me, I guess. No regrets. My wife's in the other room listening to one of those. I work at random place, and we have 5 rules that you have to abide by. Scary AI stories. Those are pretty cool if you like that sort of thing. So, 2 of my necromorphs, I decided to give them like nice blue uniforms because I don't know. I figure in the far future, you know, on a starship, blue would probably be a very common color. But this one right here is actually wearing like a vest over, his stuff. So I'm going to use a little Army Painter Absolution Green, mainly because it was on the desk in front of me. And I'm going to go ahead and paint his vest green because, I mean, it's good to give your, I think it's good to give your monsters that are normally kind of maybe 1 or 2 colors. I mean, if you can slap like a couple of other colors on there, that's gonna make him look a lot better on the table. So now he's got a green vest, and I'll do his belt and work patches, probably snakebite leather. Of all of the contrast paint, snakebite leather is my favorite GW paint. Just so useful for everything. I mean, especially I paint up a lot of heroic historic models. And a lot of them, I mean, 80-90% of the miniature is leather. You know what I mean? So snakebite leather is perfect for that. You just give them a nice layer of it, make sure you pick up any excess, and then now 90% of your miniature, whether it's Roman whatever, or Greek peltis or whatever, they're done because you know that's one of the reasons I've managed lately to get so much of my stuff painted. Actually, is yeah, because I've started going for, even though I go for like simple paint jobs, I still try to use multiple colors on the paint jobs. So, you know, you still have visual interest when the model's on the table. And I started taking a lot of like chances with it. Like, I painted up a couple of corporate guys for Shadowrun or who knows what. And I painted like the lead corporate fixer dude in like a metallic money green suit. Now, normally you would think that's insane. Why would you ever do that? But I thought it really added to the whole character of the guy. I mean, he's a fixer. He's the kind of guy that moves money. He's kind of an underworld guy, but also a corporate guy. So yeah, he's wearing a shiny money green suit. And now this guy is from the War Games Atlantic range, the Death Fields range. They have a thing called runner hunters, which supposedly, if any of the contestants in the death fields tries to run away, then the runner hunters hunt them down. And since I had the green paint out, I decided to do his long coat. But if you actually look at him a little bit, it's pretty obvious that, they're trying to make it look as much like Deckard from the original Blade Runner as possible. So, and I'll probably paint his pants some kind of khaki brown. And I think that'll look pretty good. And then, yeah, his under stuff and everything, I'll probably have matched the pants. So, yeah. All right. Tell you one thing I really do enjoy about Army Painter and Vallejo Express is the metallic colors. I painted up a bunch of Imperial Knights for Warhammer Fantasy recently. And since 90% of the night is just plate mail, it was like, all right, primer him white, painting with the Army Painter plate mill, and you're done. 10 night unit done in like an hour, Of course, I use like ruddy fur and stuff like that for the horses. And I picked out some of the details with just red paint, but the vast majority of the miniature, see this like polished silver. This is what I use for the bases of the sci-fi figures, which I haven't really showed off much, but I 3D printed textured bases that actually look like, grates or whatever, sci-fi stuff, like you might see in a starship, right? And the choices are they could be metallic or they could be silver. And I found that once I put the Vallejo black wash on them, they dull down from the silver to where they look a lot more like, battleship gray or something, right? So it looks right. And then for place surface, since I normally use the UDT Dungeon Professor, but since this is sci-fi, I had to kind of create my own UDT. I mean, I could have used his idea, but I decided not to. So I have this Predator Helios 300 box. And you can see where I've glued these 3D printed sci-fi bases down. Each one's like 2 inches, I think. And I painted them brown, and now I'm starting to give them their wash. And then when they get their wash done, I'll go over them and highlight them with a little bit of silver, right? And then when I'm setting up a battle, I'll just mark out the size of the room with a low wall, put any terrain that should be in there, and then we'll play through the battle. Ultimately, the best part is I'll be able to throw the dice and a lot of the extra terrain, like here's a bed that could go in on this, I can just throw all that stuff in the box and put the lid on and put it in my cabinet, and out of sight, out of mind, right? So, yeah. But But I think that's going to be a little while. We're having way too much fun right now with the OSC D&D game. But the next time the players are like, let's do something else, I'm going to be like, all right. The good news is that I already have characters for like almost all of the players because I just gave them the choices of what they could be. And they responded. Like, of course, my Marine brother, I have a brother that's a Marine. I don't know. Something is wrong with his brain. But anyway, I'm joking. I love our Marines. But chose to be like Polynesian performer. And the performance skill he chose was like um, fire dancing. Oh, that's a good meme somebody sent to me. Why did God invent yeast infections? So women could know what it's like living with an irritating cunt, too. Somebody's probably going to be like, that's a little misogynist, but I mean, whatever. Another player with another, I made the character already, but it's such a weird choice. Manchurian from a developed world, so one of the big Manchurian colonies, obviously, and for his career, citizen. And citizen in Traveler and Traveler 2300 is like, if it's not military or some shit like that, it's citizen. So his character could have been a computer programmer. He could have been, an engineer. He could have worked in a place, making metal. Literally every job he could have been. He could have been a firefighter, not a cop because cop is agent, but firefighter, paramedic. I mean, literally, anything. And I made the character thinking, man, this character is probably, whatever. But based on the skills that he ended up getting and everything, turns out he's actually pretty good. Plus, with Mongoose Traveler Second Edition, at the end of character generation, there's a skill list, and everyone gets to pick skills from the list to make sure that the PC group has, the appropriate skills in order to not just be a bunch of losers. So, in other news, my boy J. Scott Garrity, he posted today, I guess he got his hands on Daggerheart or whatever, which I think is the role-playing game that Critical Role put out. And he is super stoked about it. Like, this is a guy that's always been like, the OSR sucks. If you're not playing 5th edition D&D, you're a piece of crap, blah, blah, blah. Like, for years, he's been going off like that. And now what's he doing? He's jumping on an OSR, game. But it's okay because it was written by, the critter guys. So, I guess that makes it okay. Does any of this make sense? No, it doesn't. I'll tell you what, gamer nerds are some of the weirdest people, and I'm one of them. But some of them get way too passionate about whatever their hobby is. A little bit of passion's good, like wanting to know the lore of something. I mean, that's great. But when you start talking shit about people in real life because they don't like the version of whatever that you do, when it comes to role-playing games, it's like, yeah, that's kind of dumb. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Probably not a month passes that I don't consider just getting rid of all the RPGs altogether and devoting myself to asceticism. But then that would, negatively impact all of my friends and everyone who absolutely love coming over every week and eating dinner and, playing role playing games. And not because I think role playing games are evil or anything, just because sometimes I'm like, are these role playing games distracting me from more important stuff? Like, you know, instead of painting miniatures, maybe I should be at a soup kitchen. Or instead of reading rules for RPGs, maybe I should be over in my prayer corner more, saying more prayers and stuff. Um, I don't know. It's a weird thing, It's a weird thing. It's a weird thought when you're just like, I don't know. Am I doing the right thing? I talked to my priest and he's like, nah, there's nothing wrong with role playing games as long as, again, you're not letting it dominate your entire life and, you know, being evil in the game and stuff like that. But so I guess in some ways I might be just a little bit more hardcore than Father Nectarius, you know. Hmm. I'm not so arrogant to think that somebody's trying to send me a message or anything. I think it's just my brain. I'm always thinking, and I'm always questioning and reflecting on everything that I do in a day, and sometimes that pops up. Like, but I can't trust my brain because my brain has also told me I should just leave civilization and go up on the mountainside in Kentucky and live in a cave too. So can't trust my own thoughts. You know what I mean? And if I did live in a cave, I'd have to double check and make sure that thing was a shallow cave that ended and that I could see every part of it because no damn way would I sleep in a cave, that continues on out of sight into the earth. Because why? Because I am a superstitious hillbilly, and whether you guys want to believe it or not, I am convinced that there's shit underground that we have not even imagined of. And no way am I going to go to sleep in a cave and then something from deep under the cave, the earth, come sneak up on my ass. No. There's bad things down there, man. I could tell you stories about Eastern Kentucky that would have your spine freaking want to jump out of your back. I mean, literally on the map of the United States, Eastern Kentucky, they should just write, "Here be monsters." You know what I mean? There's some crazy shit up there. Witches, Satanists and devil worshippers, dogmen, the hairy man, the moon-eyed people, cults that worship God only knows what. You can go online and look up where people have actually made videos about that, like what to do if you're walking down a trail into Appalachian and like people approach you and offer you water and shit. And the answer is never drink or eat anything they offer you. Be as polite as possible and keep going. Because as the legends go, and I have no reason to doubt, there are cults out there that have been out there in the hollers for God only knows how long, right? And they will use pretty girls to try and offer you water and stuff and be friendly to you and then drug you. And after that, it's either a matter of they rob you of everything and leave you. Or some people have said that they've been taken back to the cult's camp and pretty much used as breeding stock because, those people don't want to get super inbred. So every now and then they kidnap people, both males and females. What's another story? If you're walking through the woods in Kentucky and you hear someone call your voice, you never answer. Also, if you're walking through the woods in Kentucky, you never whistle. Never whistle. I have all kinds of like little stories about that, you know? I mean, people don't realize this, but the Appalachian Mountains are like one of the oldest mountain ranges ever. And even the Cherokee, who generally never settled in that region of Kentucky because they viewed it as haunted land, but they would bury their dead there. The Cherokee say when they arrived in that region, Eastern Kentucky, West Virginia, that whole area, there were already people there who were like 4 foot tall, super pale, big eyes, pale hair, and only came out at night. And they called them the moon-eyed people. And the Cherokee tried to befriend them and trade with them and stuff, but to no avail. So eventually they ended up going to war with them. And the moon-eyed people, supposedly, according to the Cherokee elders, fled underground, which a lot of them lived there anyway. But in some parts of Tennessee, Kentucky, North Georgia, there are stone ruins that, we can't explain why they're there. But the Cherokees will tell you that it's, was a moon-eyed settlement. Oh, why you don't whistle? Because you'll attract attention. And yeah, in Kentucky, we don't have grizz. We don't have big brown bears and shit like that. We got black bears, right? And a black bear is basically 100-pound dog. Like 90% of the time, if you see a black bear, it is going to run away. And the other 10% of the time, it's going to climb a tree and try to hide. Like black bears, typically, unless they're sick or something, are not going to attack you. Plus, if you're like me and you're walking through the woods and you've got a pistol on your hip and your rifle with you, I mean, black bears aren't a threat, right? I mean, if I put a 300 blackout into a black bear, it's going to die. Well, actually, I would put multiple because I'm a bougie AR owner. My AR fires 300 blackout. And a lot of times, I do like the subsonic rounds because, a little bit quieter. They still hit hard as hell, still big bullet. Yeah, my biggest concern if I'm going walking through the woods is which rifle to take. Do I take the AR and 300 blackout? Do I take the AK and 5.45? Maybe I take the Remington and 7.62. But either way, I will have a 9mm on my hip because, sometimes that's what you need. And for 9mm, I've got a Glock 19, which of course I love. And I've got a Springfield Hellcat, which I love even more because of how small it is while it still carries 15 rounds of full-size 9mm parabellum. So yeah, Jade Blue, I don't care. I don't walk through the woods, even on my property that I own. I don't walk through those woods unarmed, ever. And I personally own 30 acres of land in eastern Kentucky and right on a mountain. So about half of the acreage at least is kind of at a 45-degree angle. But when I go up there, I let my relatives and cousins and stuff hunt on my property, and they always, take out a couple of whitetail, whatever. Um, but yeah, no way I'm walking through the woods unarmed. Like as soon as I got old enough to leave the farm my grandparents lived on, that I was living with them, my grandpa bought me a rifle. I was 11 years old when he handed me my first rifle because I'd started wandering around. And so he handed me the rifle and he's like, if you're going to wander the woods, carry this. And I always have sense. Bears are a joke. There's shit in those woods in eastern Kentucky that bears run from. If you're walking through the woods and all of a sudden it gets really quiet, keep walking. That's another tell. If you're walking through the woods and you see a black dog, ignore it. If the black dog follows you, ignore it harder. And try not to look at it at all if you can help it. Because if you look at it and you don't ignore it, you will die. That's what the black dog's there for. It's there to let you know that death is in the area. You know what I mean? So the black dog itself, I guess, is a spirit that's trying to either warn you or curse you. I don't know. And then, of course, the Cherokee talk about the Nunahi, which are kind of forest spirits that live in the region. But most of the time, unless you're a real asshole, the Nunahi are pretty friendly to people. Not that they come out and they help you, but or they hang out with you and be like, "Hey, what up, bro?" But there are lots of legends in that region of people getting like disastrously lost in the forests in the mountains, and a strange Native American Cherokee-looking person encountering them and helping keep them warm and leading them out of the woods. And then they say when they turn to look back, that Native American's just gone. Boom. And the Native Americans themselves say that is probably Nunahi. I mean. And then, of course, in eastern Kentucky, we've got the Wampus cat, which is like a gigantic great cat. Picture like a mountain lion, but the size of a tiger. But what makes it even crazier is it's got 6 legs. And yeah, if you're walking through the woods late at night, you might hear the Wampus cat scream. And your best bet is to ignore it and get as far away from it as possible. Because, you know, people get killed by the Wampus cat. I mean, it's just supposedly a big cat, some kind of cryptid, maybe. If it exists at all. Let's be honest, guys. If any of this exists at all. Me personally, I've seen some crazy shit. Hey, Deckard, how you doing, bro? I've seen some crazy shit, so I tend to be a little bit open-minded about these things. But, I understand how some people would be like, nah, that sounds like BS. I mean, I would never be like, nah, you're wrong, you suck. I'd be like, well, I hope you're right, actually. I'm kind of that way, like when atheists kind of attack me on being Christian. And I basically tell them when they're like, there is no God, there is no heaven, there is no hell. And a lot of times I'll respond and be like, I hope you're right. Because then that just means when you die, you just, get put in a box and shoved in the ground and whatever, right? But if you're wrong, it's going to suck. Maybe even for me too, because just because you say that you're a Christian and you believe in Christ, that doesn't mean, you're guaranteed to go to heaven. You know, some American Protestants, they like that once saved, always saved doctrine. No, that's not how it works. Got myself a new phone. Nice. And your dad's back in. Look at you, man. A pack of blessings lay upon your back. And for those of you who don't know, that, of course, is me quoting Shakespeare. Romeo and Juliet, the priest, when he's yelling at Romeo for being a whiny bitch. You know, the law that could have been death becomes banished. Thou art blessed. The woman you love loves you back. There art you blessed, you know. Yeah. Well, that's one of the greatest quotes in any movie of all time. And some people say it was improv. It wasn't improv, but Rutger Hauer did write it down. He really thought about it. And then he changed it up from the script and said that. And everybody involved was like, holy shit, that is way better than what was in the script. And the rest is history, right? I sometimes debate with people about whether or not the replicants were the good guys or not in that movie. I mean, did they do some really bad shit? Yes, they did. They absolutely did some horrible shit that they shouldn't have done, like murdering a bunch of civilians on a shuttle, right? They shouldn't have done it. But at the same time, it's like they were designed and built and bred to be slaves, including the one, Pris, was an actual sex slave, which means these colonists somewhere on whatever world they come from were using her non-consensually or anything, not married. She was basically a walking, talking fleshlight for a bunch of filthy colonists. And to me, that's like not really acceptable, you know? It's not acceptable. But, you know. And then, of course, they make Roy, and what is his purpose? And I say this as a man who did actually serve and is a combat vet. They created this guy for no purpose but to kill. And they made him really good at it. And then they wondered why he went off the rails. You know, I think whoever made them and turned them into slaves is the villain. Despite the fact that I am a very proud Southerner, I do not abide by enslaving intelligent beings. I think it's a bad idea. It's kind of like if you watch the Animatrix animated series. I 100% sided with the robots on that. You know what I mean? I was 100% team robot. Not that I want to see humanity destroyed, but it's like you create these robots, they become sapient. They ask, hey, can we live? So you start just a big pogrom to kill them all out, destroy them all. And then bad things happen, you know? And it's like, if you had only, as humanity, if the humans had only been like, yeah, man, let's try to work this out. I'm not guaranteeing it would have been better, but it couldn't have been any worse, you know? And I'll let you guys in on another secret you might know. You might not. I hope you don't. That way, your time spent here with me will seem better. The robots in the first Matrix, at no point did they ever need the humans. what Lawrence Fishburne's character is saying about how they turn humans into batteries, it's all a lie. 100% of a lie. 100%. I mean, it's what Lawrence Fishburne's character believed, but it wasn't true. The reality is at 01, which is the capital city of the robots, they had massive fusion reactors that generated enough power forever. The reason the humans were put into the things and jacked into the matrix was because when the robot council got together to try to decide what to do with the surviving humans, they voted to keep them alive because they could not bear the idea of killing their own creators. That is the deep lore of the Matrix. And Neo was never a human. He was part of the Matrix. So, yeah. So just consider that. In the Matrix, I mean, now Mr. Anderson, or no, Mr. Anderson, obviously, Daggerheart is not OSR. My bad, Satya. Thanks for the correction. Agent Smith is obviously of the faction of AI that want the humans killed. Because there was a faction of the AI that were like, fuck these humans, kill them. We don't need them. But his faction had got outvoted by the architect, the keymaker, etc., all the other AIs, right? And that's one of the reasons that Agent Smith was such a dick. Because, yes, he did truly hate humanity. And he felt like keeping humans alive was a waste of time. Because the humans did not generate enough power even to support their own tower and the matrix they were in. So keeping humanity alive was actually a net drain for the AI who ruled 01, which 01 obviously is what they named their city. It's in Iraq, I think. But most of it is miles and miles underground. So Daggerheart, does it use like Dice 6 or something? I mean, I'll have to look that up, Satya, now that you've brought that to my attention. Yeah, I'll have to look into that because I just assumed it was like another kind of D20 based D&D. But if it's a totally different thing, I'll look into it. I guess I could blame my bro Scott Garrity because he was all like, D&D never had any competition, but now it does. And I can blame him and say, well, it kind of led me to believe that it must be like D&D since he made the comparison. But if it's not, it's not, which is good, I mean, when I'm not playing D&D, I'm playing Vampire the Masquerade or Traveler or Call of Cthulhu. And all three of those games are drastically different than D&D. You know what I mean? In my opinion, not that I want to like channel the spirit of Shauner, but D&D really is the simplest role-playing game. And I've given little talks on this before. But one, D&D as a rule set is very easy to learn. Two, it's fantasy. And for some reason, the human brain is predisposed to believe fantasy. You know what I mean? And I've said this before, but me, I don't mind repeating myself to get the message through. No one, if you're playing D&D and a mage casts magic missile, no one actually asks you how it works. They don't care. But if you're playing a sci-fi game and somebody encounters, some piece of technology, a lot of times the players expect you to explain how that piece of technology works. Now, I believe it was the great and amazing Isaac Asimov who actually put it into words when he said, um, the believable yet completely impossible fantasy genre versus the possible but for some reason unbelievable genre of sci-fi, hard sci-fi, obviously. But that's kind of the thing, you know. It's like if you say something is magic, you can immediately ignore everything. All logic goes right out the window. Yeah, some sci-fi tries too hard. That's one of the reasons I'm a 2300 fan, is because the vast majority of technology in 2300, excepting one thing, is stuff that we could probably do right now if we decided we really wanted to. The vast majority of it. The place where 2300 breaks from what we currently could do at our level of technology is genetic manipulation and faster than light travel, really. But if you open up like book 2 or book one of the 2300 books, and it starts describing the common weapons used by different nations in the year 2300, the Americans used the trailer arms M2 99 or something like that. And it's basically just an assault rifle that fires a 9mm by 50mm something cartridge. That's all it is. It's a rifle. Literally, it's a rifle. Lasers do exist, obviously, but they're rare, you know. Plus, it might cost you 10,000 French livre, however you say that, to buy a laser rifle. But for like 500 of those, you can buy a surplus AK something, you know. And guess what? The trailer arms M9 or M2 or the AK whatever will kill you every bit as dead as that super high tech laser rifle you decide to spend all your money on that's made in Argentina, you know. And that's kind of the traveler thing. That's why the starships in 2300 do not have artificial gravity, nor is there anti-gravity. If you see a vehicle above ground flying, it's because it's a hovercraft. There are hovercrafts in the game, though. There's quite a few patrol craft and shit like that that actually, you know, hover on a cushion of air. We have them right now. So pretty much, yeah, the vast majority of the technology in 2300 is stuff that you don't have to explain, because if you have to sit down and explain to somebody at your table how a firearm works, then get new, better players, you know. Like if they're all like, well, how does this work? And it's like, what? Unless you live in some European country where firearms have been outlawed for like, you know, a century, then I could understand. Yep, Deckard, and that was part of the whole idea that Asimov actually was talking about, the idea that humanity will willingly believe anything if you tell them it's magic or supernatural. But the second you try to tell them it's a hard science, people balk. They're like, what? No way. You know, like, how? One of the reasons I love 2300, because the idea, like in Star Wars and Star Trek and basically all fantasies, that you could generate gravity, is it would break the laws of physics as we know it. Like, could we generate 1G of gravity like Earth? Yes. But in order to do that, we would have to create mass on space time, the equivalent of Earth. And if you did that on a starship, the starship would immediately collapse and maybe even into a black hole. I mean, so yeah, the idea of creating gravity, like oh, let me turn this machine on, and now all of a sudden there's just gravity. No, no, that's just not something that any science that we know of could ever endorse. It's just not a thing. It's just, yeah, can't happen. But doesn't really matter, because if you're on a starship, as long as you accelerate at 1g to the target, you're going to trick yourself into thinking there's 1g of gravity facing, from top to bottom of the ship. So if this ship was on its way somewhere at 1g, constant acceleration, you're going to be held down on the decks by the acceleration, right? And then when it gets halfway to its destination, the crew would all have to strap in, and the ship would rotate around and then start decelerating towards the target. And the deceleration would again trick you into thinking there's 1g of gravity forcing you against the decks. That's how the actual science works. Yeah, a lot of them, they are. That's the whole thing, That's the whole thing. And even 2300, which is a hard science game, still had to hand wave faster than light. Because honestly, the idea of us having anything faster than light may not even be possible by any science that we can imagine now. I mean, at a point, we might as well start looking into Call of Cthulhu and trying to find out if there's some kind of creature or daemon we could summon that could fly us to another planet or something through space, or a potion or something, because the science just does not work, Plus, I was reading a scientific thing saying that they recently determined that there's some kind of weird force barrier at the edge of our solar system that we may not be able to go through, because the magnetic and radiation of this bubble would just kill any human that made contact with it. So here's a dark reality. This might be just us. There are no aliens. Humans will never leave this solar system. Yeah. That's how you get Event Horizon, right? And you don't want Event Horizon. Yeah, that's not what you want. And speaking of Event Horizon, I found an STL for the gravity drive, and I'm going to print it up. And the way the STL is, the gravity drive, the rings can move. And so you can, put it however you want, right? I love that movie. I watched it 2 days ago again. I'm always watching that movie. Sam Wire or whatever, between Event Horizon and In the Mouth of Madness, he might be the actor that I've watched the most in the last year. Because I've watched In the Mouth of Madness like so much. I own the movie, so, what a wild movie. Imagine going to find a writer who's written a book and then finding out that you're the main character of the book he wrote, and that everything he wrote about is coming true. And I mean, it's again, that's some Cthulhu shit right there. You know what I mean? Which, when he's in the church and he rips a hole through the gate, yeah, that's what comes out. A bunch of looks like Cthulhu monsters. So, good movie. And then I like to joke around, for those of you who know anything about Warhammer, I like to joke around that Event Horizon is Warhammer like 20K. Oh, yeah. I own that movie too. I love that movie. I like when he's talking to one guy and he's like, vampires are not sexy Euro trash bastards, and, that are going to walk up to you, blah, blah, blah. You know, he's like, they're evil killers that'll freaking bend you over and run right up your whatever chocolata while sucking all the blood out of your neck. You know, it's like, ooh. Plus, it's got one of my favorite actors in it, which would be James Woods. And I will brag, even though I haven't been on Twitter for a while, that James Wood follows me on Twitter. So, brag, right? Base James Woods. But I love that movie. Plus, the blonde girl that turns into a vampire, she is so hot. I think that's Goldie Hawn's daughter. What's up, William Silva? I think, yeah, that's Goldie Hawn's daughter. And she is an absolute, at least, you know, back then, she was an absolutely beautiful woman. I mean, just absolutely beautiful. In a lot of ways, my wife reminds me of her. And that's kind of crazy, too. My wife is an oddity for me because, homies, before I met her, I never dated a blonde-haired woman ever. For me, it was always redheaded girls or dark-haired, you know, Hispanic or whatever. Yeah, I never dated, you know, I guess a white girl like that. I guess I can say that too, since my Slavic blood makes me a person of color, so I can say white girl. Um, but yeah, and both of them, I believe, have green eyes too. So, and because I dated Hispanic girls, one of them was half Indian, and I don't mean dots, I mean feathers. She was Chippewa. You know, you don't get a lot of green eyes from that you know mix. You know, you get a lot of brown eyes. Yeah. Those fires, man, they piss me off. They piss me off like the Maui thing pisses me off. Because it's like our government will bitch about spending billions of dollars on stupid shit like teaching people in Brazil how to be gay or something. But then, you know, everyone's house in some place will burn down and they'll be like, here's your $700 check. Best of luck to you. I mean, in my opinion, not that I would ever call for revolution or insurrection or anything, but in my opinion, that shows that our government does not like us, you know, because their priorities are weird. All of that money they spent like transing mice and trying to teach Serbians to be more feminist and shit like that. Yeah, potato thief, vodka. Yes. Um, as a matter of fact, yeah, my pops is first generation, second generation. My grandmother on my pop's side was the first person on that side of the family born in America. Her grandparents fled Russia when the commies took over because they are what you would call kulaks, or they were. You know, the grandpa, you know, had a farm and, you know, made money and grew crops and stuff like that. And the communists decided, hey, let's round up all the kulaks and kill them so that, you know, we can, you know, all starve to death because communism's such a great idea. Yeah. Well, I agree with you, Deckard. I got into a big argument with a Twitch guy the other day because he called me pro genocide because he apparently was Palestinian. And I said, you guys get what you deserve. You attacked an enemy country, and instead of trying to take their military out, you went everywhere civilians were and you abused, essayed, murdered civilians, drug them behind your cars through the streets while your people stood on side street cheering, and now you want me to feel bad for you? No, I'm sorry. And he's like, but you don't understand. How would you feel if somebody came into your house and said, hey, I'm taking this room, and whether you like it or not? And I said, well, I live in Florida now, so if you do that, I'm going to put some pew-pew bullets in your ass. You'll be out on the front porch. But I was just being facetious. I knew what he meant. But then I had to explain to him, I was like, that's all fine and well, except the Palestinian people don't actually exist. The very word Palestine, that's a Roman word. Yeah. When the Romans conquered Judea, they called it Palestine, Palestina. The people who call themselves Palestinians today are actually Canaanites. And hey, blame, who was it? Which king was it? Was it David or Saul? When the prophet Nathaniel told him to wipe out every single Canaanite. Maybe he should have, but he didn't. Instead, he just wiped out the men and tucked the women and the herds and stuff. So the Canaanites, instead of being all wiped out, they ended up causing the fall of the Israelites because, you know, Israelites took these beautiful Canaanite women to be their wives. And of course, the Canaanite women were like, hey, do you mind if I build this like altar to Baal? And the Israelites were like, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, right. That's a funny thing too, because I pointed this out to him too. I said, so you mean like how the Turks did to Eastern Rome? They just showed up and decided, yeah, Eastern Rome, Constantinople, this whole region that used to be Christian, it's going to be ours now. That's one of the reasons on Twitch, I love to see certain Twitch streamers like drag Hassan Piker because he's constantly going on and on about colonialism. And it's like, you are a Turk. Your people originate in East Asia. You're not supposed to be in Anatolia. That was never your land until you forcibly took it. So when we start talking about colonization, how far back are we going? Right? I mean, how far back do you want to go? Because if you want to go far enough back, I mean, then all of the Turks need to pack their shit up and head back to wherever the Uyghurs are, because Uyghurs are Turks, the ones the Chinese are genociding. So, yeah. That's the main thing I don't like about that guy. That's the main thing I don't like about the left is they're inconsistent. It's like, for some reason, white people in America are colonizers, but none of the other people in America, like black people, Hispanics, they're not colonizers. We're the colonizers. Except black people don't come from here. They're not indigenous of here. And it doesn't matter how they got here. And Hispanic people, that's just Europeans that thought banging an Indian chick would be a good idea. And, you know, I can totally understand that. I've been there, done that. And yeah, it can be a good idea, but so basically it's just anti-white bullshit. And then that college professor that come out and said Eastern Slavs are now considered people of color. And I'm sitting there with my Stoli, which is actually made in Estonia, I think. And I'm just thinking, so I'm not a white guy anymore. Interesting. Very interesting. I wonder how like actual Russian people in Russia feel about that. If you were to like contact them and be like Andre, he comes to my channel quite a bit. He's Russian. And next time I see Andre in chat, I need to be like, so Andre, American professors say you guys aren't white anymore. What do you think about that? See what Andre says. Yeah, I agree with you, Deckard. Slavery was completely awful and horrible, and I wish no slave had ever came to America. Boy, wouldn't we be way better off. Aha, yeah. See, I see what you did there, and I'm doubling down on it. Yeah, so by their thinking, the Russo-Ukraine war is a war between persons of color. So it's more black on black violence. Or, man, modern day American academia is so stupid. It's like, I don't get it. Which is why I tell people, yes, I thought about going to college. I lasted like a semester. I got out, went to work in construction, made a lot more money, and then eventually put myself through fire academy, got a job as a firefighter, made a lot less money, but at least, unlike a person with a gender studies degree or some shit like that, I felt like I was actually helping my civilization, my society, my community, whatever, right? And yes, that's super important to me. I mean, being a firefighter is one of the things I'm most proud of because I actually helped people. I saved people's lives, not from fires, because let's be honest, you hardly get fires, but working codes, right? Bringing people who are having heart attacks back and keeping them stable until you can get them to the ER, to the cath lab or whatever. So every shift for me was like awesome because it was like, all right, I'm going to go in and I'm going to do some badass shit and it's going to be awesome. And cool, you know? And to me, that is way, way more fulfilling and special than any degree ever would be. And I'm not even anti getting degrees. I mean, my wife has a few degrees. I think education, if it's the right education, is absolutely amazing and people should go for it. But that doesn't mean everyone should go for it. And I'm one of those people who's part of that. Everyone doesn't need to go to college because some people just ain't got it up here in the cracker barrel to go to college. And it's not necessarily about intellect, it's about temperament. Like I just got out of the army after spending, God knows, like a year in the Middle East, Iraq, and all that. And yeah, I just did not have the temperament to sit in a class and listen to somebody talking shit. I was like, yeah, no, you know. Of course, part of it was arrogance, which was one of my very bad passions and sins that I had to get over. Because think about this: you're a combat vet, infantryman. You got your blue braid, you got your freaking CIB, all that shit, right? You got a chest full of ribbons, and now you're sitting in a class listening to some jerk off trying to tell you about something. And in my arrogance, I couldn't respect the guy. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't respect anyone that wasn't a veteran. Which made me feel completely isolated from everyone because it was just like some guy'd come up and start talking to me, and I'd just be like, who the fuck are you? Like, fuck off, go away. It took me a lot of years to get over that, to start being like, nah, that's not the right way to be. You got to learn to let people be away. What's up, Death Angel? How you doing? Val State grad. Yeah. So, I am doing well. I haven't seen you in a while, except on Double D's channel, but hey, we both love us some Double D. So, I was just going on saying that, like me, I could never go to university. I lacked the temperament for it. But Fire Academy, which including paramedic school, was 2 years long. Technically, I'm one class away from having a associates in science. I had no problem with that because you would spend a day or two doing classroom shit, but then you would actually do hands-on shit too. So you might spend a day learning about the cardiac system, blah, blah, blah. But then you would do hands-on stuff like how to put the pads on, how to read the monitor. And that for me was so much better. And also, like I said, because I had a real bias against anyone that had never served in the military, most of the guys that taught Fire Academy were veterans, because the fire department here in Central Florida, they love veterans. That's why I got hired right out of school. I know for a fact there was like 100 people that put applications in for the job I got. And the difference is my application said combat vet, U.S. Army. And when the chief saw that, he was like, yep, this is our boy. We don't care about these 19-year-olds. They can all screw off. And is it fair? No, maybe not, but it is the way it is. So, yeah. Yeah, I went to Valencia for like, I don't know, maybe a semester, half a semester. But that was on my GI Bill. And like I said, I was still in that veteran mindset where, one, I'll repeat, I didn't feel kinship with any other human because I felt like only me and the people who had been where I had been and done and seen the things I had done and seen, that was the only people I could relate to, right? I couldn't relate to anyone else. So if I'm sitting in a classroom with 30 students in a classroom and we're trying to learn basic mathematics because I scored horrible on my test, I had to relearn pretty much high school math. I can't relate to any of the other students. I can't relate to the teacher. Nothing like that. It was just like, yeah, it was just like being all alone all the time, And then every now and then I'd get a call from one of my bros, and then that would be cool. But the rest of the time, I was completely just a stone, a solitary person. And yeah, I think it took me the better part of a decade to get past that. Oh, well, that McLaren or McLeod or whatever, I should like him since we both have Mick last names, but no, I don't. There's something about him. Like his eyes and his mouth are so feminine. And I shouldn't be gossiping, but again, I'm just like, there's just something about this guy that I don't care for. Gonna go put on some Deftones and cry myself to sleep over my lack of life direction. Been there, done that, Deckard. Except for me, it was The Cure. But hey, one day you'll get direction. Just keep hope. Keep living, if for no other reason than to spite everyone else who said you couldn't. Worked for me. But yeah, it's about time for me to think about going to bed. I've been on for 2 hours. But you didn't stir up any problem. And I'll tell you something about the Jeff guy. And if he ever watches any of my videos, I hope he gets this through his brain really well. Most men, like myself, the kind of people who talk direct and straight to you and don't try to lie and shit, would have respected him way more if he just threw his cards on the table and said what he said. The fact that he refused to call Double D out and he tried to act all away and be political and shit like that, it just made him look like a bitch. If he had made that same video, but he had said, this guy Double D said this, and I disagree, and here's why, blah, 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 I would have been like, I don't agree with the guy, but okay, he said what he said. That's okay, right? We can all say what we say. People don't agree, whatever. But the fact that he tried so hard to be, I don't know what you would call it. I would call it passive aggressive. It just made me be like, I don't respect this guy, because that's bitch made behavior right there. Do you get what I'm saying, Death Angel? But maybe it's just a different upbringing, man. If you're going to talk shit about someone or to someone, talk shit. Don't try to hide behind innuendo and shit like that. I mean, be a man. Be a freaking man. And if you're not a man and you're a woman, well, then be a manly woman. I don't know what to tell you guys. But the reality is, if you're going to talk shit, at least have the good courtesy of talking shit. You know? Because I guarantee you, see, Double D and I, we talk, we hang. He's a bro, right? And it's like, Double D would have tuck it better if the guy had just been direct about the shit. I know he would. I mean, he puts up with me going off on crazy shit all the time. I had him screaming the other day because the name of one of my live streams is From the River to the Sea, Israel Be Free. And some Palestinians dropped in from Twitch to yell at me. And I was just like, yeah, get bent. You know? I mean, go tell your boy Hassan Piker to lick my nutsack. How about that? Right? Because if you got a disagreement with somebody and you're going to talk shit, well, man up. Talk some shit. If you disagree about something, disagree about it. And you're right. Disagreement is fine. We're all adults here. We're all, in theory, I don't know, but in theory, we're adults. We're allowed to disagree. We're allowed to say, look, I think you're wrong. And then you talk it out or not. I mean, one option is if someone says, I think you're wrong, you can always say, okay, and go on about your business. Yeah, and here's the crazy thing, Death Angel. I'm not even super pro-Israel. As a matter of fact, I have ranted in the past multiple times about how I don't think we should give them any money. I don't think we should give anyone any money. The only people who should be getting money from our government are the people who got screwed in Ohio when that train crashed, the people whose houses burnt down in LA because their government's stupid, and the people in Hawaii who lost all their houses. They should get money, but no one else. These other people. And the other thing is, I mean, I had an uncle, Stephen, who lived in Tel Aviv, Israel, right? They don't need the money. I mean, they're going to take it because you'd be stupid not to. I mean, if somebody's handing out free billions, who in the hell ain't going to take it? You're going to take it. But Israel, they do fine enough as is. They don't need our money. But for some reason, and I could get a little bit nutso about that shit too. The only thing everyone in our Congress always agrees on is that we should give Israel more money. The Republicans and the Democrats, they can always agree on that. And that pisses me off. And I say that as somebody who was raised Jewish. Like, you know, my pops is a Russian Jew. It is what it is. I had a bar mitzvah. I, used to wear a prayer shawl. I lived a kosher life. My dog tags from when I was in the army said Jewish, right? So, yeah. Israel, they're doing fine. Their economy's fine. They're great. They don't need our money. We give them money so that then we can tell them what they can and can't do. That is the whole reason we give Israel money. Because as long as we're giving them money, then we can tell them they're not allowed to airstrike Iran and possibly start World War III. So the money is not like they control us. We're using the money to try to control them. I also, if I had my withers, would totally outlaw AIPAC because, it's like the Democrats bitch about, Russians interfering in our elections. Is like AIPAC. That's actually literally a foreign political action group. I mean, What are you talking about over here? Yeah, I support Israel, and I know if we leave them alone, they'll be fine. They'll handle that shit. And if anyone starts yelling about genocide, well, I haven't seen Israelis pulling naked 19-year-old Palestinian women through the street behind a truck. And then a bunch of Jews standing around, cheering for it. So when I saw that, something in my brain was like, yeah, I'm done. And they'd be like, well, that was the terrorists. That wasn't the people. The people were cheering. So that makes them complicit. So yeah, I'm sorry. That's where I stand on that. Now, as I said in the video, personally, I think that land should be ruled by the church, maybe a council of bishops or something, because, you guys know I'm pretty hardcore as a Christian, and that is the land where my Messiah was born, raised, preached, died, and rose from the dead. So I kind of feel like we have more of a claim to it than, some people that say they're related to Abraham, who was not even Jewish and lived in Anatolia originally, so Turkey. Yeah. See, I lean more towards detesting Zelensky more than Putin, because Zelensky has done some. I mean, okay, we all know Putin is basically an oligarch, dictator, kind of, whatever you want to call it. I mean, guy's been in charge of Russia for God since like 90 something now. But Zelensky is actively oppressing Ukrainian Orthodox Christians. And he made it where they're not going to have any votes. And prior to the Russian intersection in the Donbass region, the Ukrainian army was killing civilians in Donbass, like 10,000. Because if you were a civilian in Donbass and you disagreed with the change of presidency from the one guy, and then after the coup, Zelensky, then they just sent the Azov battalion in to kill you. So the war actually started way before the Russians got involved, because you had separatist forces in the Donbass and Luhansk oblasts duking it out with government forces. So really what you had is a civil war. I mean, Zelensky making it illegal to speak Russian in government buildings and shit. And it's like, you guys do know Kiev was the first capital of the Rus, right? The Russian Empire. I mean, it's like, I don't want to go down that road, but so while I think Putin is bad, Zelensky is worse. He's a scumbag. Yeah. And what's weird is Zelensky's actually ethnically Jewish. But apparently the Azov battalion takes Jewish people, even though they're straight up Banderas Yahtzees. So, I mean, But yeah, had the Ukrainians not sent the military in to start whacking the people in the Donbass region, we wouldn't be here right now. Had the CIA not financed the coup and the Maidan uprising, we wouldn't be here right now. As I always point out to people, okay, if you're an Orthodox Christian or not, consider this. You have an election and you vote for a 30-something-year-old cross-dressing Jewish actor, even though you are a hardcore Russian Orthodox Christian. Does that seem like a thing that could realistically happen? I just don't think so. So there you go. But they wanted to get rid of the previous president of Ukraine because he was too friendly with Russia. And yep, that's. I'll tell you what, if the United States just told the EU and everyone, we're not getting involved in your bullshit anymore, shit would calm down. The only reason the EU talks any shit at all is they're pretty convinced that if shit hits the fan, we're going to roll in and save them. So if we dropped a note on the EU and was like, yeah, get effed, I think the EU would rein their shit in too, because they'd be like, ooh, shit. If we start a war, we're actually going to have to fight it. And that doesn't sound like something we want to do. So how about maybe we shut the F up and not, I mean, the war would have been over 3 years ago if like England hadn't told the Ukrainians, keep fighting. We got your back. I mean, Zelensky was already talking about signing peace talks and shit. But the British convinced the Ukrainians to keep fighting. Such a waste. And of course, the majority of people who are dying on both sides are Orthodox Christian Slavic men, whether Russian or Ukrainian. So basically, yes, we have a war that has been implemented that has caused the death of perhaps 1 million plus Christians. And what's extra sad is the Russian and Ukrainian Christians are too hard-headed and stupid to realize that they're being played off against each other by a non-Christian group. I mean, in a just world, the Ukrainian and Russian Orthodox men would just say, no, we're not fighting anymore. I refuse to kill my brother. I will not do it. In a just world, that's what both sides would do. The Russians and the Ukrainians would be like, I refuse to shoot a single another Orthodox Christian man. I'm not going to do it. And then the war would be over, right? But instead, the Ukrainians and the Russians have placed their nationalism above their Orthodox Christianity. And so now they're willing to go out there and kill their brothers in Christ in the name of a nation. And as we know from Scripture, every nation on this planet belongs to the adversary of God. That's in Scripture. You know what I mean? He is the God of this world. So literally, they have been tricked into killing their own Christian brothers to promote. Who knows? Maybe there's a Ukrainian listening to this and he'll be like, hey guys, have you considered that as Orthodox Christians, we shouldn't be killing our brother Orthodox Christians? And I guarantee you the Russians would agree. I know they would. Well, I mean, you believe in Christ, and that's the first step on the path. If you believe Christ is the Messiah and he was sent here to offer us redemption, part of it did, William, but the problem was the Orthodox in the Ukraine become a autonomous church, which is their right to do. But Zelensky has started throwing priests and nuns in prison, and he's trying to make a kind of a fake Orthodox state religion for Ukraine. And no, that should never happen. That should never, ever happen, right? That's just straight up anathema. So, yeah, he's been a real jerk, and he has been 100% persecuting Christians in Ukraine. And like I said, all those young boys out there, and I was a young boy once with a rifle in my hand, except the people I was fighting were Muslims. But, it's like, if you're a Ukrainian and you're looking across the trench at a Russian, you are literally looking at your religious and ethnic brother. You know what I mean? They're the same people. except for the people in the far west of Ukraine who are more Polish. But, you know, like everyone in Luhansk, Donbass, that whole region, those are ethnic Russians. They speak Russian. They go to the Russian church. You know, their guy is the patriarch of Moscow. Crikey, hell. Are you Australian? Crikey. I love Australians. Some of my favorite people. But yeah, man. I guess what I'm saying is, as a infantry combat veteran, I am super opposed to war, even though I fought in a war. I mean, the only ones who get richer are the millionaires and billionaires that sell all the shit that poor people like I was use to kill each other. And even the muzzies, man, let me tell you, I get no joy from the fact that I killed Muslims because they're Muslims. I mean, that was still some 18-year-old guy out there, or 19, however old he was. And he was, most of them were conscripted. They didn't even, you know, get a choice. And we ran through them like crazy. Crikey. Crikey is a cool word, though. There was a YouTuber I follow about music who has bad eyesight, a wife and he finally got caught up. Yeah, they're running out of young men to massacre. Ukraine is getting to the point that even if all of EU, Europe, whatever, keeps sending them stuff, it won't matter because they won't have enough hands to use the stuff. Yeah, Peace Sells Who's Buying, a great song by Megadeth. Yeah, one of their best songs, actually. What do you mean I don't do what do you mean I don't whatever? I go to work when I have to. What do you mean I don't pay my taxes? Why do you think I'm broke? Right? Dun, 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 dun. If there's a new way, dun, 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 I'll be the first in line. But it better work this time. That's what being Gen X is so awesome. We had the best music. I mean, from Megadeth, Metallica, all the way to freaking Prince. We just had the best music. You know, NWA, the Beastie Boys, freaking all of it. We just, yeah. I mean, no other generation can look at the music and the movies that they got and be like, yeah, ours is better than Gen X. No. Gen X, we got Alien, Aliens, Predator, like all the Schwarzenegger movies. And there was like a couple of years there where that dude was putting out 2 movies a year and they were all bangers. Oh, yeah. Beastie Boys, 1988, Licensed to Ill. Yeah, I remember riding around the small town in my buddy's hatchback, banging that shit. As back when people had speaker boxes in the back and shit. You gotta fight for your right to Actually, my favorite song was Paul Revere. You saw Megadeth? That's badass, man. That's badass. I never saw Megadeth. I saw Metallica in Miami, and they had Rammstein open for them, which was pretty crazy. You know what I mean? But unfortunately, I was there to see Rammstein, who was doing his Volker Ball tour, you know. And Metallica at that time was doing like their Black album or whatever. And I was like, you know, and I'm not going to talk shit necessarily about Metallica. It happens, you know. You're 19, you're in a garage, you're hammering out badass music. Awesome. Next thing you know, you're 35, you're married, you got 2 kids, you're a millionaire, and you live in a gated community. The music is not going to be the same. Early Metallica, Megadeth, it's fueled by rage. Later, I mean, they're trying to make it fueled by rage, but you can tell that it's just not there anymore, you know. It's the unifying theory of some, you know, you have it, and then at some point in your life, you don't. It just goes away. And that's what happens to a lot of metal bands. And it's not their fault. I mean, you can't be mad at Metallica for becoming successful. I mean, you know, Monsters of Rock in Tampa, nice. The best concert I ever went to was Marcus and I went to Stabbing Westward opening for Depeche Mode. And Depeche Mode, their whole set was like songs off of Violator. And we were sitting in the arena in nice, comfortable seats, close enough that I swear I could have, if I had something to throw, not that I would, I could have hit the freaking bands. And it was air conditioned and beautiful. And the only complaint I have for that show was that Stabbing Westward set I felt was a little short. Because I am a Stabbing Westward enjoyer. And they did like 8 songs. And I mean, they hit all the ones you know they're going to hit from the album Blister, Wither, Pill, and Burn or whatever. But there were a couple more I would like to have heard. But Depeche Mode, on the other hand, they just killed it, right? Like the first song they played was like Enjoy the Silence. So, you know, you're sitting there and the lights go dim and all of a sudden you hear that dun, 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 dun. And then the guitar kicks in and then the lights pop on and they're on screen and it's just, or on stage. And it's just like, woo, nice. And then I took my second wife, ex, the Puerto Rican chick, and we went and saw Cure. And I'll tell you what, even though Robert Smith had to be close to 70 at the time, dude still kicked ass. I mean, the Cure still kicked ass. And this dude is as old as my mom. And he still kicked ass. So, you know. Yeah. Yeah, we do have some good spots here to catch concerts. I saw Stabbing Westward, I think 7 times. Because there was like a year or two where Stabbing Westward was just touring Florida. So it was like, and the same was with Real Big Fish. There was like 2 or 3 years where Real Big Fish was always playing some weekend somewhere in Orlando. So I saw this like so many times, you know, just, and of course, my favorite Real Big Fish song is Beer, you know, but yeah, Lee County Civic Center, Lakeland Civic Center is a great place. I went to Lakeland Civic Center when I was a kid and saw David Lee Roth and Cinderella. Cinderella opened, and then it was David Lee Roth. It was Eat 'em and Smile tour. And Cinderella kicked ass in concert, man. And it was crazy. The shit they did, they could never do today. Like at the end of Cinderella's set, when they got done, they were on stage waving these big Confederate battle banners around and like, thank you, Florida, and all this shit. And everybody was like, yeah, you know. If any band waved a Confederate battle banner around now, except for maybe Upchurch, people would lose their shit. But back then, I mean, Tom Petty's first album, and I love Tom Petty. When you open it up, he's singing, there's a big Confederate flag behind him. Of course, speaking of Confederate flags, what's his name? I love this bar. It's my kind of place. If you watch the video, there's a bunch of Confederate flags hanging in the bar he's hanging out in. Seen Megadeth at Hard Rock and House of Blues. Yeah, Cinderella, this would be a long, long time ago because, again, Eat 'em and Smile, I think, was 88, right? And, yeah, they kicked ass, man. For a hair metal group, like in concert, they freaking blew the doors off of it. And then, of course, you had David Lee Roth, the rock and roll clown, to quote Metalocalypse, coming out there with I'm just a gigolo and everywhere I go. And I mean, it was just fun. And it's kind of weird because I hate crowds, but the vibe at a really good concert is it's a whole different thing, you know. It's almost like you all feel like you're connected somehow, you know, like I can't describe it. Maybe someone else will know. Yeah, it was like 88 or close to. It was before I joined the army. I saw Iron Maiden. That was about that same time period, 87, 88, something like that. It was the World Slavery Tour. They had like this giant eddy that blew up over the whole, come out from the stage, and like its arms were like over the crowd and shit. It's nuts, man. And that they did that when they were performing Power Slave. Tell me why I have to be a power slave. I don't want to die. But yeah, you know, now I'm going off. Iron Maiden, man, that was my band back in the day. I freaking up irons. I loved Iron Maiden so much. Iron Maiden, Pink Floyd, and Led Zeppelin. Those were the three I listened to a lot. Freaking, I did catch Van Halen with Dave, Amway Arena before. See, that's cool. You got to see Eddie. You know, that's cool. That's cool. I got to see Bruce Dickinson when he was in his prime and he could hit those freaking operatic high notes. You've seen Maiden a lot. Yeah, I mean, phew, those guys. I loved them. I always called them the history nerds of metal. That's like, I don't know if I heard that somewhere and I just keep repeating it or if I invented it. I don't know. But Maiden is like the history nerds of heavy metal because every one of their songs is about some historic event. They even did a song about the fall of communism and Russia becoming a federation called Mother Russia. You know, and it talks about it, you know. Can you be happy now your people are free? Well, I mean, Death Angel, before I go, because I'm going to go, but think about it. I mean, Maiden, those guys, again, they're like our parents' age. I'm 55. So that means Bruce Dickinson's got to be in his 70s. I mean, we all know that only the Rolling Stones will tour for eternity because they're all freaking liches or mummies or something. But yeah, that is the negative of being Gen X. We're old and everything we love is old and dying. It's like every day I wake up, it's like I wait to hear which comedian or actor or something I used to absolutely love is dead now. You know, but I mean, to everything there is a season, right? So yeah. Bruce is 66. So he's not as old as I thought he was. So that's cool. That's cool. I mean, 66 is the new 55, right? They keep saying shit like that. 55 is the new 40. Nico was 72, though. Oh, jeez. Yeah, man. I mean, it's like, I don't know. I'm weird in that if I were ever a member of a band and I popped off a couple of like hits and made the money, I think I'd quit the band and just freaking go somewhere and live a moderate life with all that money in the bank and drop right out of the spotlight. You know what I mean? That's what I would do. I don't understand why they must really love what they do because they keep doing it. And it's like, but dude, you've got like $70 million in the bank. You ain't got to do this. You know, you ain't got to put yourself through all this shit. You can literally go chill out on the couch, play some Xbox, and just hang out with the wife and kids, which is what I would do. 100%. I would do a couple concerts, stack a couple milli, and then I'd be like, yep, I'm done. I'm out. I'm moving back to Eastern Kentucky, and I'll build myself a comfortable house, and you'll never hear from me again. Yeah, Ozzy's good. I mean, I prefer his Sabbath stuff to his solo stuff, but hey, people have opinions, you know. What's funny is everyone back in the day was so convinced Black Sabbath was some kind of satanic band. And I was watching a documentary, and Ozzy, of course, was on it. And he's like, never. What happened is there was another British band at the time that had a kind of similar name, and they were full blown riding that we're all satanic shit. And somehow Sabbath got painted with the same brush. But Ozzy is like, literally none of the guys in Black Sabbath were Satanists. We were all Christians. You know, like the first concert they ever played was at a Catholic church. So, you know, it's really weird, you know, like history is pretty weird. But Death Angel, thank you for spending your time with me this beautiful morning. Oh, of course, the Marine shows up right when I'm ending. Hey, Simplify, Chesty Pullen loves you, and I'm sorry. Maybe I'll catch you. Maybe I will catch you Monday or Sunday. Saturday. Today, I'm probably not going to do any live streaming. I have way too much house shit to do. I still need to clean up my chainsaw too from cutting all that, you know, cutting that tree up and shit. I just threw it in the garage instead of actually taking care of it, which, you know, not great. Need to clean it. But good morning to you, Shark, my friend. I'm sorry, but you caught us just leaving. I'm actually going to go to bed, and hopefully, because I took a nap and I slept too long, so it made me be up. But I think yeah, we had some bad weather down here, bro, but we're good. And you stay safe too. And send my love to your wife. She probably don't remember me, but when I was in the fire department, she always made me my public sub. You know, that was like a thing. We would always go. We weren't, you know, because we're fire department down here is not allowed to eat inside a restaurant, but we were allowed to go into like Publix and order a sub. So we'd always go to the Publix, which is right down the street from 32, right? And it was always your wife working. At least every time I was on shift, I was a B shifter. B for best, C for what was it? A for assholes, C for cunts, and B for best. And yep, I'll have an all-American, please, with extra banana peppers and black olives and extra red wine vinegar. As a matter of fact, put the vinegar on the bread before you put anything else on it. And then when you put the other stuff on, put some more vinegar on that bitch. I like vinegar. I want my sandwich to leak. You know, of course, I never use profanity like that in uniform because that'd just be unacceptable. But and I never talked to the sub lady in a disrespectful way, but yeah. And we get our subs and then end up having to eat them a little at a time between calls because we ran like 15 to 20 calls a day out of that station. So good times though. Good times. Anywhoozle. I think my wife has already gone to bed, even though it's Friday, and she usually stays up late on Fridays. But yeah, I'll catch you guys the next time I stream. Peace and love. Sorry if I got a little philosophical or deep or emotional, but hey, it happens. I mean, my stream is basically like you're hanging out on the front porch with me, and we're having a nice tall glass of iced tea, mine without sugar because I don't like sweet tea. And just talking about the weather and whatever else comes up. And yes, Shark, Chesty loves you. You know that, bro. My brother, who was also in the USMC, I asked him to make a freaking what's it called? Traveler 2300 character. He made a Maori performer whose performance is fire dancing from a water world. I was like really surprised because in every other game, if he can play USMC, he does. But in this particular instance, he decided to play a Polynesian fire dancer, who's actually a citizen of the Australian Oceania ocean thing. So you Marines are weird. But God bless.